In 1940, long before the United States officially entered World War II, military planners inside the US Army Air Corps feared something few Americans even imagined: a war fought in the dark. Across Europe, London and Berlin were already locked in nighttime duels between bombers and searchlights. The British scrambled radar-equipped Mosquitoes to intercept German raiders. The Luftwaffe deployed Ju-88 night fighters to stalk RAF bombers through the fog, but the United States had nothing comparable. In the event of war, America would be blind at night. The solution began not in Washington or New York, but in a quiet corner of California, where a young engineer named Jack Northrop believed the future of aviation lay in radical ideas. Northrop had a reputation for being ahead of his time. He had already experimented with flying wings and composite materials. When the Army issued a request for a dedicated night fighter, Northrop proposed something that stunned even experienced officers. His aircraft wouldn't be a modified day fighter or a twin-engine bomber with radar pasted onto it. It would be the first American warplane designed specifically for the night, a machine built around radar, stealth, and lethality. It would be fast, heavily armed, and crewed by 3 specialists: a pilot, a radar operator, and a gunner. The Army accepted the proposal. The new aircraft was given a name borrowed from one of nature's deadliest hunters, the Northrop P-61 Black Widow. But what made the Black Widow truly revolutionary wasn't its guns or its size. It was a device hidden inside its bulbous nose, the SCR-720 Airborne Intercept Radar, a piece of technology so advanced it bordered on science fiction. Developed in secret by MIT's radiation laboratory, the RAD Lab, the SCR-720 allowed the aircraft to detect enemy planes 5 to 6 miles away, even in total darkness or heavy cloud. No other American aircraft could do that in 1941. Not even close. Because radar was highly classified, much of the P-61's development took place behind locked doors. Northrop engineers worked with technicians who had never seen a radar set before, and even test pilots were given minimal information. The aircraft was enormous for a fighter, 66 feet long, with a wingspan larger than a B-25 bomber. Some officers questioned whether anything that large could dogfight. But the Black Widow wasn't designed for dogfights. It was designed for silent ambush. In May 1942, the first prototype took to the skies over Hawthorne, California. Powered by 2 Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines, the P-61 climbed gracefully into the dusk. Test pilots quickly realized they were flying something completely different. The cockpit offered superb visibility. The engines ran smoothly, and the central gun pod, 4 20mm cannons mounted under the belly, packed firepower unmatched by any American fighter. But because the aircraft relied on classified radar, few outside a small circle even understood what it could do. Many Army staff officers viewed it skeptically, convinced that existing fighters like the P-38 or P-47 could be modified for night work. The Black Widow seemed too big, too strange, too experimental. Yet Northrop's engineers pushed forward. They refined the radar installation, adjusted the tail booms for stability, and strengthened the wings for heavy maneuvering. As production models emerged in 1943, radar operators began training in simulators, darkened rooms lit only by the soft green glow of a cathode ray tube. They learned to read moving blips, estimate closing speed, and guide their pilots toward invisible targets. By mid-1944, the first P-61 squadrons deployed to Europe and the Pacific. Their early missions revealed something astonishing. They were intercepting enemy aircraft before the enemy ever knew they were there. Japanese and German pilots, accustomed to nighttime immunity, suddenly found themselves under attack from unseen opponents, jets of fire erupting out of darkness, engines they never heard coming. The United States had created a new kind of hunter: silent, accurate, invisible. The Black Widow was no longer a secret experiment. It was ready for war. When the first P-61 Black Widows arrived in the Pacific in mid-1944, the Allied foothold in the region was still fragile. American forces were advancing island by island, but Japanese air raids, especially at night, continued to batter bases, airstrips, and supply depots. Until now, the US had never possessed a true night interceptor. Searchlights and anti-aircraft guns were the only defense once darkness fell. The Black Widow changed everything within weeks. The aircraft's first operational unit in the Pacific, the 6th Night Fighter Squadron, established itself at Saipan shortly after the island was secured. The pilots had barely finished unpacking their gear when radar operators on the ground detected Japanese aircraft probing the area at night. Previously, these raids had been unopposed. Now, the squadron had a weapon built specifically for this moment. On the night of August 30th, 1944, radar stations reported a lone enemy bomber, likely a Mitsubishi Betty, approaching Saipan at medium altitude. AP-61 crew, pilot Captain Dale Haberman and radar operator Lieutenant Ray Mooney were scrambled into the humid night. They climbed through clouds, their instruments glowing faint green, trusting the unseen technology in the aircraft's nose. Mooney watched the radar scope carefully. A small blip appeared, followed by a second that confirmed the target's direction. "Contact, bearing 110, range 3 miles, closing." Haberman throttled back. The Black Widow accelerated smoothly, lifting above a thin layer of cloud. The radar showed they were moving into position beneath the Japanese bomber, a blind spot where Japanese gunners never looked. At 200 yards, the radar signature sharpened. Mooney whispered, "You're on him." Haberman eased the stick, saw the dark outline of the Betty appear above. He squeezed the trigger. The P-61's 420mm cannons spat fire upward, tracers streaking into the black belly of the bomber. The Japanese plane erupted into flame and spiraled into the sea. It never fired a single shot back. That kill, the first operational victory of a Black Widow, marked the beginning of a new phase of air warfare in the Pacific. As American forces pushed into the Philippines, Peleliu, and eventually Okinawa, the Black Widow became a constant presence above the front lines Japanese aircraft often attacked at dusk or dawn, believing low visibility would shield them. But the P-61 thrived in those conditions. Its radar operators learned to identify enemy aircraft simply by how the radar blips behaved. Fast-moving fighters, slow reconnaissance planes, weaving bombers. The aircraft's design gave it a decisive advantage in these engagements. Its long, high-aspect wings and powerful twin engines kept it stable during slow, precise interception maneuvers. Its radar operator sat directly behind the pilot, feeding calm, measured instructions even while the aircraft banked violently to avoid anti-aircraft fire. The Japanese soon recognized they were facing something entirely new. Pilots began flying erratically at night, switching course repeatedly in hopes of shaking an unseen pursuer. But the Black Widow's radar could follow even sharp turns. Crews reported several instances where Japanese planes attempted to hide in cloud banks, only to be intercepted and destroyed moments later. During the campaign for Luzon, a single P-61 crew downed 3 enemy aircraft in 2 nights, all without ever being visually spotted by the enemy. The aircraft simply approached from below or behind, fired, and vanished back into the night. The Black Widow also became essential in supporting ground operations. During the liberation of the Philippines, US Army commanders repeatedly requested P-61 coverage during nighttime advances. The aircraft patrolled overhead, intercepting enemy reconnaissance planes trying to track Allied troop movements. Each kill reduced the Japanese ability to coordinate counterattacks. By early 1945, Black Widow squadrons operating from bases in the Marianas and the Philippines reported dozens of successful interceptions. Many of these kills were never confirmed visually. The enemy plane simply disappeared from radar after a burst of cannon fire. One pilot later said, "It was like hunting shadows. We never saw them. They never saw us. Only the radar knew the truth." The Pacific Air War had been transformed. Where darkness once belonged to the Japanese, it now belonged to the Americans. The Black Widow owned the night. While the P-61 earned its reputation in the Pacific, the Black Widow's most technical and disciplined hunting grounds were half a world away, the night skies over Western Europe. Here, the aircraft would face a different kind of enemy. Battle-hardened Luftwaffe night raiders who had spent years slipping through Allied defences. These German crews flew Junkers Ju-80s, Heinkel 111s, and fast Focke-Wulf 190 intruders that struck airfields and supply depots in the dead of night before vanishing into cloud and moonlight. Until the Black Widow arrived, many of these German missions were nearly unstoppable. The first P-61 squadrons deployed to England in late 1944, joining the rapidly expanding US 9th Air Force. Their arrival coincided with a surge in German night intruder operations. As the Reich weakened, the Luftwaffe relied more heavily on small, precise nighttime attacks to disrupt Allied advances. These raids targeted ammunition dumps, fuel trucks, and even front-line tank columns. In the confusion of night, a single German bomber could do damage out of all proportion to its size. The Allies needed a predator of the night. They found one in the Black Widow. Unlike the Pacific, where the P-61 often worked independently, European operations were deeply integrated with radar stations on the ground, chain-home radars in Britain and mobile SCR 584S in France and Belgium coordinated interceptions from the ground, tracking both friendly and enemy aircraft. When a German bomber crossed the Rhine or slipped through the Ardennes, Allied radar picked it up instantly. Instructions came calmly through the radio. Widow 2, Vector 270, target at Angels 6, closing. The P-61 crew acknowledged, throttled up, and let the ground controllers set them on the path. Once within 6 miles, the aircraft's own SCR 720 radar took over. The green radar scope came alive with a moving blip. Steady, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. The pilot eased forward, trusting the unseen. At 2 miles, "I have him. Altitude increasing. He's weaving." At 1,000 yards, they often still saw nothing. The skies over Europe were pitch black, polluted by smoke, haze, and low cloud. But the radar never lied. The German aircraft could drop altitude, climb, or turn. The P-61 followed each maneuver effortlessly, its operator calling out corrections with calm precision. Then, finally, a dark shape emerged, just a silhouette against the faintest glow of moonlight. In that instant, the Black Widow struck. Its under fuselage 20mm cannons fired in short, murderous bursts. German bomber crews often never returned fire. Their first warning was the sound of cannon shells tearing into their wings. Many Luftwaffe reports from late 1944 and early 1945 show the same chilling line. Attacked by an unseen aircraft, no visual contact. The Black Widow's finest moment in Europe came during the Battle of the Bulge, when the German counter-offensive in December 1944 plunged the continent into chaos. Ice storms, snow and fog grounded most Allied aircraft, but not the P-61. Its radar didn't care about cloud or darkness. During one night alone, a single Black Widow from the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron intercepted and shot down 3 German aircraft, 2 Ju-188 bombers, and a FW-190 night fighter. The German crews were trying to strike Allied supply lines feeding troops in Bastogne. None completed their mission. Allied soldiers on the ground reported hearing engines overhead and then distant explosions, never realizing the invisible duel happening above them. As winter turned to spring, Luftwaffe night operations became increasingly desperate. German commanders ordered aircraft to fly low, twist through valleys, or skim tree lines to avoid radar. It made little difference. The SCR-720 radar inside the Black Widow tracked them regardless. Once locked on, escape was nearly impossible. One P-61 pilot later described a German bomber's final moments. He dove, turned, climbed, shut off lights. None of it mattered. The Widow stayed on him like a shadow. By the end of the European War, the P-61 had destroyed dozens of German bombers, fighters, and even several V-1 flying bombs, whose small size and high speed made them notoriously difficult targets. Most of these kills occurred without the Germans ever spotting the intruder. Before the P-61, darkness had sheltered the Luftwaffe. After it, night became a hunting ground, and the German raiders became prey. Across the quiet skies of Europe, from Belgium to the Rhine, the Black Widow's legacy was the same. Silent approach, sudden fire, and vanished prey. The night was no longer Germany's ally. It belonged to the Black Widow. By the spring of 1945, the war in Europe was ending, and the war in the Pacific was entering its final brutal phase. The P-61 Black Widow had proven itself across 2 continents, as an interceptor, a guardian, and a hunter of shadows. Its crews had shot down enemy aircraft from the Marianas to the Ardennes, often without ever being seen, but unlike the P-51 Mustang or the B-17 Flying Fortress, the Black Widow never became a household name. Its victories were nearly all invisible, unfilmed, and uncelebrated. Still, what it accomplished had no equal, a weapon too advanced for its time. The P-61 was, in many ways, ahead of the era it fought in. Other fighters depended on eyesight, moonlight, or sheer luck to find targets at night. The Black Widow depended on something else entirely: electronics. Its SCR-720 radar made the aircraft a flying searchlight, one that only the crew could see. It could pick up bombers at 5 miles, track their movement second by second, and guide the pilot into firing position with deadly accuracy. But radar secrecy meant that crews were forbidden from discussing most of their missions. Reporters couldn't photograph the radar equipment. Gun camera footage rarely captured anything in the dark. So while daylight fighter aces returned to cheering crowds, the P-61 crews returned to quiet dispersal huts, often with nothing to show except a radar log and a crater where an enemy aircraft had once been. As one Black Widow pilot put it, "We fought ghosts, and we became ghosts." By mid-1945, the Black Widow had helped eliminate nearly all Japanese and German night raiders. In the Pacific, it intercepted reconnaissance aircraft that once shadowed US fleets unopposed. Over Okinawa, it hunted kamikazes before they reached American ships on Iwo Jima. It patrolled the skies for hours, guiding B-29s home through fog and storms. In Europe, the Luftwaffe's night intruders learned to fear the invisible hunter. Their losses soared. After-action German reports often listed causes of loss as attacked without visual contact, fired on from below, or simply unknown enemy aircraft. Unknown enemy aircraft. That was the Black Widow's signature. On some nights, entire German raiding groups turned back after spotting Black Widows patrolling on radar. The Luftwaffe called them Gespensterjäger, the ghost hunters. One of the P-61's most dramatic missions came in April 1945, during the final assault on Berlin. A Black Widow crew from the 422nd Night Fighter Squadron intercepted a fast, low-flying Heinkel 111 attempting to escape the collapsing city. Using radar, they tracked it completely through cloud cover and shot it down without ever seeing the aircraft clearly. It was one of the last Luftwaffe bomber losses of the war and one of the Black Widow's final kills in Europe. And then, almost overnight, the Black Widow was obsolete. The first American jets, the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star, entered service just as the war was ending. The military's attention shifted immediately to jet propulsion, streamlined airframes, and atomic-era warfare. There was no place for a massive propeller-driven night fighter, no matter how effective it had been. The P-61 continued serving briefly in the occupation of Japan and in post-war night training roles, but by the late 1940s it was being phased out. Many were scrapped. Only a handful survive today in museums, ghosts of an aircraft that had no real successor until the Cold War. Yet Black Widow veterans never forgot what the aircraft did. A radar operator from the 421st Squadron wrote in his logbook, "Others flew into history, we flew into darkness, and when we fired, no one knew who hit them." It wasn't until decades later, after the declassification of radar programs and the release of squadron diaries, that historians realized the Black Widow's true impact. 127 confirmed kills. Dozens more unconfirmed, near-perfect interception record, pioneering radar tactics adopted worldwide, a design that influenced the first US and Soviet jet interceptors. The P-61 had shaped the future without ever being seen. Its crews didn't seek glory. They wanted results. And night after night, from France to Saipan, from Luzon to the Ardennes, the results were unmistakable. In the end, the P-61 Black Widow wasn't just a fighter. It was a warning to the world. The next war wouldn't be fought by what pilots could see, but by what their instruments could find. A silent hunter, a shadow with guns, the plane that owned the night,